Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our series Become a Master in Chess. So in this series I'm going to show you very important ideas of the opening stage, middle game stage, and of course of the end game stage. And today's subject will be a very important subject that I think we have to recognize in our own games. Today we'll talk about the king in the center position. So the king in the center position is sort of position that I think has to be a trigger for you. You have to sense it immediately that something is going on in the position, that actually it's a special position for us to recognize, because when your opponent is staying with the king in the center for too long, then of course we have the opportunity to attack the king immediately. We have the opportunity to strike maybe with some tactics. Maybe we have even the opportunity to sacrifice the piece just in order to keep the king in the center longer, and then include maybe more attackers into the game, and maybe even deliver a checkmate, maybe play a beautiful king card or something else. But sometimes notice that actually this king in the center position is tricky, because sometimes we attack the king without any compensation. Sometimes we sacrifice the king, sacrifice the piece just in order to keep, as I said, the king further in the center, but we don't have support. Maybe we have played a knight sacrifice for a pawn, and maybe we delivered 1-2 checks, but nothing special was going on. We didn't include more pieces into the attack, and our opponent escaped, maybe created sort of escape routes, simply maybe removed the king towards the queen side or something. So we didn't have support, as I said, and our opponent escaped, and we maybe lose the game because we have sacrificed the minor piece in the first place. So that's why I think it's very important to recognize when is it possible to attack the king in the center, when it's not possible to attacking the king in the center immediately. And that's why in this video we're going to answer the question: when is it possible to attack the king, when is it not possible to attack the king in the center. So the most important things that have to be answered when you are attacking your opponent's king in the center are these questions that I have written down for you here. So we are analyzing now these questions with our first example. This is a beautiful gameplay by Keres against Wilhelm Winter, and let's see now this question. So first of all, when we are on the attacking side, we are asking ourselves the question: how many attackers are we using in the attack? So when we watch now this position by Keres, we can notice now that actually he has here really beautiful attacking formation. He has 3 minor pieces. I would even consider the queen as an attacking piece, because the queen needs only 1 tempo in order to be included into the attack. And also the rook here, I think, is immediately an attacker. So I would count here 5 attackers against only maybe 2 defenders of blacks. I would consider this bishop on d6 as a defender, and also the bishop on c8 can be maybe used as a defensive piece, because it can be maybe placed here on e6, where it's of course locking the e file. So it's actually a position where we have 5 attackers against 2 minor piece defenders of black. So that's why I think a potential attack against the king would really make sense. And the most one of the other most important questions of this of the king in the central position is actually are there any escape paths for our opponents? So when we are attacking our opponent's king, then sometimes he has sort of a path. Maybe we are sacrificing a piece or something, and he has sort of a route. He escapes simply and gets, maybe first he has maybe castle on the king side, and then he simply moves the king towards the queen side. Then okay, he played maybe many times with the king, but eventually he escaped, and again our attack is splashed. In this position, I think potential escape paths are not so good. Even if you try here to escape somehow on the queen side, still notice that the c file is open, so it's simply a too open position here. If maybe there would be a pawn here on c6, just imagine the same position with the pawn on c6, then maybe the king can escape, because the king could stay maybe on c7 or something, where it couldn't be attacked by the rook, or maybe with some other activities on the c file. So that's why I think when we talk about potential escape paths, black is here really lost, because black doesn't have a really room to escape. So also we should consider how many moves is our opponent needing here just in order to escape, because when we are playing moves like rook to e1 or something, you see now our opponent is just 1 move far away from castle. That's what I mean about this. When we are playing simply too passive, you see our opponent can escape. So that's why notice that in this particular position, our opponent needs only 1 tempo just in order to escape. So that's why our attack has to be fast, our attack has to be immediately. That's, I think, the point about this. So that's why our attack has to be a strike immediately, just in one tempo. You have to break the position immediately. So that's why when we count how many tempi our opponent needs in order to escape, it's only one tempo by the king. And also a very important thing that has to be considered here are possible counterattacks by our opponent. When we watch now this position, I think there are no good counterattacks by black, because black's position is simply too passive. Black didn't include other pieces into the game. Look at this bishop is passive, knight is passive, this bishop is okay, it's in the center of the board, but I don't think that the black has any counter chances here. So that's why I would not consider this to be an equal position or something. This is a position where white has to now destroy black immediately. So as I said, let's see now how Paul Keres played in this beautiful game. So he played knight to f7, so he sacrificed the knight for a pawn. And as I said, still we have these two bishops on the board. Still we have the opportunity to include the rook into the game. Still we have the opportunity to include the queen into the game. So that's why you see we had 5 attackers versus maybe 1-2 defenders of black. So that's why we can even sacrifice some material. But now the king is at least stuck in the center. Okay, here Winter took with king to f7, but now the queen is coming into the game. You see the position is falling apart. Look at this, all of these pieces are stuck on the starting squares, and this is a completely lost game here for black. In the game, g6 was played, bishop takes g6, h takes g6. Here Paul Keres took also the rook. Bishop to f5 was played, trying to include a new defender into the game, but now a beautiful move again by Paul Keres. Rook to e1 with the threat of queen to e8. So that's why we had here bishop to e4, but now rook takes e4, d takes e4, and after queen to f6 in this position, black resigns. So really wild stuff. You see, we can even take out the bishop. We'll include the rook into the game. We'll also take out the pawn on g6. So as I said, the position is simply too messed up, and black simply resigned the game. But that was only possible because Paul Keres recognized this possibility to deliver the sacrifice on s7. But as I said, sometimes we make a mistake. We play too passive. We play rook to e1 and our opponent escapes. Still, probably this is much better position for white because of the huge piece activity. But as I said, you should not risk anything here with the move knight to f7. Paul Keres didn't allow here to secure the king by castling. So here let's see another example. It's a beautiful game played by Mikhail against Bent Larsen. Notice again that the king is stuck in the center here on e8, and basically we are, first of all, what we are asking ourselves here, is it possible even to stay to lock somehow the king in the center further, because the king, okay, seems secured because there is a beautiful pawn chain. Still there are many pieces in front of the king. The queen is very active, but actually we should notice also that the queen is a little bit endangered here. So let's see possible ideas how to keep the king in the center. The only king move that makes the king in the center further is of course the potential move knight to b5, c takes b5, and then bishop to b5. This is the only possibility to keep the king in the center further, and that's the move actually that Mikhail played. But now we are asking ourselves the question, how many defenders are there, how many real defenders are here, because this is a real position. Although the knight is centralized, the bishops are very close to the king. Actually, these pieces are not so well placed because they're simply too passive. Let's see now possible continuation here for black. Maybe black doesn't react here, play simply kingside castling. The problem is now this continuation, knight to d4, we have queen to g6, and look at this c4, you escape with the knight, and now with bishop to c2. This is a really messed up position. The queen gets trapped here, so really a bad position here for black. So you can play f5, but then we up on start and similar stuff. So still it's a really weird position. So I would not really love to play this game from black perspective. But after move knight to b5 that Mikhail played, Bent Larsen played c takes b5, and notice now after queen to b5 there is no good escape path. That's what I mean about this very important concept. There is simply no good escape path for black, because king to f8 would be of course the perfect move for black in order to escape from this position, but actually it's not possible because you get queen to e8 checkmate. So that's why that was the beautiful part about Mikhail Tal's attack. Queen to b5, decoying the king towards the center. Of course bishop to d7 doesn't make sense, you just get queen to d7. Okay, maybe now you can escape, but look at this, queen to b7 is going to happen. This is a messed up position again for black. So that's why after move king to d8, now Mikhail Tal played a beautiful stunning move c4. You see how important it was to decoy the king towards the d file, and now rook to d1 is going to happen. Now there are only two good choices again for black. You can play queen to e5 or something, or you can play knight to b6, but after knight to b6 again it's weird. We have this opportunity, queen to a5. Now we have to escape. We play simply c5. You see the king has to escape. Okay, black has a escape route here, but now after something like c takes b6, a takes b6, queen to b5, this should be again a better position for white. Bishop to e3 is going to happen. We'll attack simply this position further. Maybe this was the way to go for black, at least prolonging the game, but still it was a perfect attack by Mikhail Tal. After move c4, here Bent Larsen played queen to e5. Now Mikhail Tal simply took, and the problem is now you cannot even take queen with the queen because you get rook to d1 and the queen gets trapped. So after a couple more moves the game was prolonged. Of course this was still a battle and a struggle, but eventually Mikhail Tal won the game. But that's not the point. As I said, here Mikhail Tal noticed that black doesn't have a good escape route here with the move king to f8, that actually, although black has good defensive pieces here in front of him, that they're not well coordinated. They're simply on bad squares. So that's why this beautiful knight to b5 really makes sense. So we have seen if you castle kingside, then you get this continuation with c4, bishop to c2. So also the queen was a little bit endangered on this weird square on f5. So let's see now another example. Let's see again how is it possible here in this position for white to keep the king in the center. First of all, we are answering this question: how is it possible to keep the king further without castling? Is it even possible? Does it even make sense to play maybe aggressive methods against the king in the center? Because as I said in the beginning of the video, sometimes it's not possible because we don't have support. And that's exactly this example here in the game that I found in the database. White, for instance, played here the aggressive move bishop to d6, and it seems like a beautiful attractive move. Look at this, c takes d6, knight takes d6. But now after move king to f8, I think white's attack is splash here. White sacrificed some material. White played really attractively here, but in my opinion this is not the way to go, because you don't have support. As I said, you don't have so many aggressive pieces in the game. You have to play bishop to c4. Maybe, I'm not sure where to go with the knight, so even knight to e5 doesn't make sense. Look at this, knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen to e5. So you cannot include other pieces in the attack, and black will eventually even escape with king to g8, king to h7, maybe rook to d8, will simply regroup. So that's what I mean. Black has here a beautiful escape path. Black has, I think, here also good defensive pieces in front of the king, and the problem is now you don't have so many attackers. So that's why sometimes, as I said, we are simply rushing into the attack too much. We simply want to play aggressively, but sometimes it doesn't make sense because, for instance, in this position, in my opinion, white doesn't have any compensation. So let's see now another example. Here it's a beautiful game played by Mikhail Tal, pardon me, but it's Boris Spassky versus Mikhail Tal. So Mikhail Tal is here with the black pieces. Again, notice here Boris Spassky played queen to d2. We have a6, bishop b takes a6, knight to c6, and bishop to e2. So this was the progressive attack here by Mikhail Tal. Notice again here Boris Spassky tried to escape with the king, tried finally to secure the king by castling, and again we are asking ourselves the question: is it possible to keep somehow the king in the center further? How is it possible, and does it make sense to keep the king in the center further? Because this is now a really complicated position. But if we don't react here immediately, if we are allowing, if we play simply too passive, I think like bishop to d7, that's the question: how many moves needs our opponent to secure the king, and you see now white needs only one move to secure the king. So that's why our attack has to be much faster. So you see, you don't have time to play passive moves like bishop to d7 and similar stuff. So that's why let's see now, how is it possible to make our opponent react here immediately? How is it possible to break through immediately in this particular position? Okay, here Mikhail plays immediately e5, but d4, pardon me. So d4 is really aggressive, because although white has a good control of the d4 square with the knight, with the pawn, with the queen here, actually after e takes d4, Mikhail had this opportunity. Rook takes f3, sacrificing now the rook for the exchange, again making white react. That's, I think, the most important thing here to recognize. Black played moves that made white react here. Again, white has to make something. So here in the continuation, bishop to f3 was played. We had this one, c takes d4, and see now it's already a messed up position for white. There is a problem here on the long diagonal. The queen is in danger, the knight is in danger, the bishop can take out the pawn on a6. So as I said, it was a perfect attack here by Mikhail. So still, it was quite a complicated game. That's not the point about this video. We don't want to really complicate things too much, because it was so aggressive how Mikhail played the game. But in my opinion, this is a perfect example that shows how Mikhail recognized that actually Boris Spassky is just one move far away from securing the king by castling, and then eventually he struck immediately with the central breakthrough with the move d4, made his opponent react, sacrificed then some pieces, and continued the pressure with these other pieces. So you see, these rooks are not participating in the game, so that's why you see white doesn't have them as defenders. Meanwhile, black has many attackers. Bishop, queen, knight, bishop here on a6, rook can be included into the game. So this is really a messed up position for black. Although the engine is giving only a slight edge here to black, but this is a position that I would not love to play here, of course, from white's perspective. So let's see now another example. Here in the last move, black played knight to d7. Again, we should consider opportunities, how to keep the king in the center further. Again, we are asking ourselves the question, so how many moves is our opponent needs our opponent to secure the king by castling? So first of all, he needs to move bishop to e7 or something, maybe even bishop to d6, but he needs another tempo with king takes king plays on g8, of course, king side castling. So that's why our opponent needs, in this particular case, two moves in order to get to security. So that's why our attack doesn't have to be necessarily so fast. Our attack doesn't have to be immediately aggressive, but maybe here there is a beautiful way to again keep the king in the center for a while. And again, we should evaluate how many attacking pieces do we have in the game. Here the knight is, of course, a good attacking piece. The queen and the bishop are good attacking pieces. The bishop on a3 can be also included into the attack. So that's why I think so far white is here really a beautiful attacking formation. White is here 4 brutal attackers against black's king. So that's why maybe again you can pause the video and try to see now possibilities to keep the king in the center. When you find the possibility maybe to keep your opponent's king in the center, is it possible to do that? Does it make sense to play the game like this? Because maybe we are rushing again into the attack. Maybe our opponent can defend the position if we play simply the position too aggressively. So pause the video, as I said, and try to see now the best continuation here for white. So okay, here white played a beautiful knight takes f7. Notice after king to f7, bishop takes e6, there is simply not a good escape route for black. That's what I mean. So see, there's simply not a good escape path. King to g8 is of course not possible. King to e8 is not possible because of bishop to f7, queen to e6 leads even into checkmate. There are only maybe these ideas. King to g6 is maybe an opportunity, but now the problem is now you get at this one. E4 with queen to g3, queen to g3 is a huge threat. So again, black is simply lost. So you see, king to g6 again doesn't make sense. So that's why the only move that black had here was the move bishop to e7. And you see now this move king to e7 makes also the bishop worse now, because the bishop is stuck now. It's blocked out by its own king, and when that's the case, of course, then also the rook cannot play in the game. So that's why these two pieces are out of game, although white sacrificed one piece, but actually made many pieces of blacks really bad. So that's why this sacrifice, I think, by white made really sense. Although it's still a tough game to play, the engine gives again only a slight edge to white, but I think I would love to play this game from white perspective, because now you can of course continue the pressure. Look at this, bishop to a3, c5. When we just we just continue, maybe kingside Carlsen here. Look at this, queen to c7, and now we can even play d takes c5. Look at this, this is really messed up. You don't want to play, of course, queen knight to c5. You get this one, rook to c1. So you see, the king is really bad here in the continuation of the game. So in my opinion, this move, let's go back, let's go to this tactical shot. Sorry, I just moved it to okay, knight takes f7 really makes sense, king to f7, and now bishop to e6. This keeps really the position messed up here for black. Black is now on the reacting side. Black has only to defend this position from this point on. So really beautiful tactical shot it was for sure. So let's see now another example. Here it's a game played by Magnus Carlsen against Ulf Andersson. Here Ulf Andersson played with the black pieces, and Ulf Andersson played knight to g4 here, attacking the pawn on f2. And actually Magnus Carlsen was on the move, and he made a tough decision. He played now a really weird move, bishop to e7. Okay, this move, of course, if you play queen to e7, we'll just play, I don't know, queen to b3, queen to d2 or similar stuff, queen to e2. The game is pretty equal. In my opinion, white should be slightly better because of the better activity of pieces. The bishop on d7 is a little bit bad, but the problem about this move bishop to e7 that Magnus Carlsen played is that he basically allowed this move queen to f2, and after king to h1, king to e7 by Ulf Andersson. My question here is for you, just to talk about this position further. Was this sacrifice by Magnus Carlsen correct? Does Magnus Carlsen have here enough compensation in order to attack the position further? In my honest opinion, I think this was not a good way to go by Magnus, because okay, it's still a weird position. The king is still stuck here in the center of the board, but the problem here for white again is that white doesn't have so many attackers. White doesn't have such a aggressive method to continue to push here. Even if you play, let's see, in the game was rook to e2 was played, we have queen to c5, queen to e1. For instance, even if you try ideas of h3, there is a beautiful counter attack that black can always play. Here h5, rook to h6, and rook to f6. Maybe our opportunities notice that the king is here really messed up on the h file. So in my opinion, here queen to c5, this was a weird sacrifice by Magnus Carlsen. It was a tough one, of course, also for black to handle, but this would be a position I think that I would love now to play from black's perspective, because I'm up a pawn and I can regroup. I think white's attack is simply too slow. There are not so many pieces that are attacking the position, so that's why, in my opinion, this was not the way to go. So as I said, you should always evaluate how many attackers, how many defenders, are there potential escape routes, how many pieces can be included in the attack, are there possible counterattacks. As I said, how many moves needs black in order to secure the king. King to f8, for instance, is also an idea to get out of this mess. Bishop to c6 will be played, regrouping. So it's, I think, a complicated game for white to play. Although Magnus Carlsen won the game, because Magnus Carlsen can play whatever Magnus Carlsen wants to play. But in my opinion, if you're maybe, of course, a worse player like Magnus, and probably everyone is in the world, then you should not go into this kind of stuff, because in my opinion, it's still complicated. Look at this, knight to f2 is still an opportunity. So as I said, really weird game it was that Magnus Carlsen pulled off here. But as I said, he eventually won the game, and that's his point here. But as I said, in my opinion, you should not risk so much if you don't have a clear idea where to attack the position. So let's see now another beautiful example. Here we have Anatoly Karpov versus against Viktor Korchnoi. My question here is, after move knight to d4 that Anatoly Karpov played, does a pawn sacrifice on e5 really make sense? So that's now the question that we are answering here. Is a possible pawn sacrifice on e5 good or bad here for white? So maybe you can pause the video and evaluate the position, and as I said, we're talking simply about this position. Is a sacrifice on e5 good or bad here for white? Actually, this is a stunning move that Anatoly Karpov pulled off here, because he sensed simply there's beautiful pressure here on the e file, and after move knight to e5 that Viktor Korchnoi played, we have this one, f4, knight to c4, and you see now f5. That's very important here to notice. Again, Anatoly Karpov played only attacking moves, didn't allow here black to secure the king by castling, and black got destroyed here. You have to make a reaction. Look at this. We have this one, g takes f5, knight to f5. You cannot even secure the king by castling anymore. This is a messed up position because the queen will come into the game. Knight takes g7. You have problems on dark squares. The dark square bishop will come into the game. So this is really messed up. So that's why after knight to f5, you see rook to g8 was played, but now knight takes c4, d takes c4, bishop to c2, and as I said, here from this point on, Karpov took over, also played that in the more tactical shot. But I think we can agree that this is a good position for white. The black's king is stuck in the center, and even if black manages to secure somehow the king by castling here, that's what I that's why we have talked about this potential escape path. Even if you manage to secure somehow the king on the queen side, still there are easy ideas for white to break immediately the position. Notice that the king will be on c8, we play a4 immediately, we're breaking the position immediately, we're playing maybe even some annoying checks with rook to a8. So the king is simply stuck here. That's, I think, the beautiful part about this attack by Anatoly Karpov. He sacrificed one pawn but created really a tactical storm, and he eventually won the game also with a beautiful immortal tactical shot. I've analyzed the whole game on my YouTube chat channel. You can also check it out, Anatoly Karpov versus Korchnoi, but this is our subject. As I said, the question was, is it possible here after move knight to d4 to sacrifice the pawn on e5? This is really good. Knight takes e5, f4, f5. So this was a beautiful idea by Karpov, and one of the most brilliant games in his career. So let's see now another example. Here it's a beautiful game by Wilhelm Steinitz against Kurt von Bardeleben, and it's one of the most popular games about the king in the central position. We have here really nice attacking formation by Wilhelm Steinitz, but the problem is now we cannot include every piece into the attacks. You see now the rook is good, the queen is good, the rook on c1 is good. The only bad piece that we have here and that we would love to include in the attack is of course the knight on f3. And when we watch now this position, again we're counting, we have 3 attackers maybe against 2 defenders of black. So that's why we have to make more out of this position. So but we want also to keep our opponent's king in the center. So how to make progress here? Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. So pardon me. My cold is still not finished, so sorry. Okay, try to see now the best continuation. The good move that of course the legendary Wilhelm Steinitz saw was a beautiful stunning d5, and d5 creates spaces for the knight. That's the way to go. So we have to include more attackers into the game. So d5, there's not so much that can be done by black. Kingside castling is of course not an opportunity because you lose the knight, so that's why black took. But now look at this, the knight is coming on a better square. In the continuation we had the knight to king to f7, and now knight to e6 here by Wilhelm Steinitz. threatening rook to c7, so that's why rook to c8 was played. But now a beautiful move, queen to g4, attacking now also the pawn on g7. We had now g6, and now knight to g5, discovered check. There is only one thing that can be done. You have to step back with your king here on this side. But now again, a beautiful move here by Wilhelm Steinitz, sacrificing the rook. You have to step back in the continuation. If you take, of course, here with the queen, then you have this one, rook to c8, rook takes c8, and queen to c8. And we had here, after king to f8, a beautiful windmill tactic here. After move rook to h7, in this position, black simply resigned. So really wild stuff, how Wilhelm Steinitz played the game. But as I said, sometimes we forget about these moves because we don't know where to attack. We are simply scared to sacrifice further pieces here. As I said, Wilhelm Steinitz played a brilliant d5, opening the position, and the most important thing is that he liberated now the square for the knight. Of course, you cannot take out with the knight, you cannot also take out with the queen, because again, your knight on e7 is hanged. So that's the point, including more attackers into the game, keeping the king in the center further, opening files, opening diagonals against the king is crucial here. So beautiful game here by Wilhelm Stein. So let's see now our last example. Here it's Wang Hao versus Anish Giri, and again we are asking ourselves the question, is it possible to keep the king in the center? How is it possible, and does it make sense to keep the king in the center here? So maybe you can pause the video and think about this position further. Again, ask yourselves the question, how many attackers is black using in the game? How many defenders eventually is black using here? How many escape paths does black have here? And how many moves is black needing here to secure the king by casting? And how are there maybe possible counterattacks by black? How could he maybe also make progress? Are there tactical possibilities on your side of the board? So as I said, think about this position further, try to think about it hard. It's really wild method that Wang Hao applied here, but it's quite an amazing one. And here Wang Hao played a brilliant bishop to f7. Although you can play bishop to f4, bishop to g5, bishop to e3, it's perfectly fine. Bishop to f4, I think queenside castling is okay. But Wang Hao sensed here that Anish Giri stayed a little bit too long with the king in the center. Notice, as I said, black needs only one single tempo to secure the king by castling. So that's why your attack has to be fast. Your attack has to be in one move. If you just play one passive move, well, okay, bishop to f4 is a good move, is a developing move, but it's simply too slow. So that's why Wang Hao pulled off bishop to f7, king to f7, knight to g5. And you see now the problem is now this messed up position. The knight is standing in the way of the bishop. So here after king to e8, we have this one, knight to e6, attacking the queen. We have here c5, we have queen to d1. The queen finally escaped, but here Wang Hao has another pawn to take. We have this one, king to f7, and now after move knight to f5, this is already a weird position. Although the engine gives here equal chances, but I would not love to play here the game from black's perspective, because what you can do after bishop to f8, maybe you're escaping. Knight to e5 is also maybe an opportunity, but look at this now. f4 is going to happen, e5, we have here always the opportunity, knight to d5, queen to d5, f4 is I think crucial here. Knight can take out here the pawn, the bishop on e7, king to e7. Look at this, f4. As I said, this is really complicated game here to defend for black. But okay, after move knight to f5, Anish Giri played bishop to f8, kingside castling, and now d5 was played. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and after queen to d5, here you see this is really tough to defend. The king is naked here. Again, you don't have so many defensive pieces in front of the king, so black eventually lost the game and Wang Hao won the game. But still, it's risky, you see, because I think although in this position Anish Giri lost the game, still there were defensive resources. So that's why my judgment here is, I think, and my conclusion of these positions is that sometimes you should not do these things, because you see, even in this position, it's so tough to see everything, because black is here defensive resources. Sometimes we should not rush into the attack, counting how many attackers do you have, how many defenders your opponent has, where are the potential escape routes, does he have counterattacks, how many tempi needs he to escape with the king. So these are crucial questions. Think about these positions further and further, notice it in your own games, because sometimes you can win games very easily, very effective, without even thinking so much about the position, because your opponent played simply too passively. He didn't secure the king by calcing. So think about this position more, because as I said in the beginning, this king in the central positions have to be a trigger position for you. You have to recognize them immediately. You have to make something out of it, or at least you should consider the option of doing it and then stop. Sometimes it's not possible, as we saw in many examples. So but I think it's a really subject worth to study, and worth to think about it harder and more. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you will apply some of these ideas in your own games. If you want to see more about our Become a Master in Chess series, here's the link of our playlist. The first videos were an interactive course where we have created live streams. Now I've decided to make only this kind of videos, because there is a delay between the chat and the YouTube progress. So that's why it's always tough to make live streams when you answer questions in 15 seconds. So there is simply too much delay. So that's why I've decided to make these videos like this, and of course showing you many examples of particular ideas. So okay, I hope that, as I said, that you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more about our Become a Master in Chess series, here's the link of our whole playlist. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.